Namaste and welcome to the fourth season of UTV show produced by Leadership Academy. Leadership Academy is an attempt to foster the creativity of young minds by providing them a platform to address issues that concern our society. I am Smarika Casey and I am a winner of Nepal Top 7 Debaters 2013.
Hello, my name is Anna Boarini. Today, because I'm also a journalist, we're going to talk about writing and some of the differences between different styles in writing and different techniques that you can use to become a better writer and a stronger writer. You guys know how there's all sorts of different kinds of writing, right? There's creative writing, which can be writing stories, or it can be like writing poems. Maybe it's writing essays about your life, so memoirs. Or there's also there's creative writing. And then there's essay writing, which can be creative. But when you think of an essay, you think more of school, right? So you think your teacher says, write me an essay about this subject. Like you're going to write an essay for science, and you write your essay on your subject matter. But there's also, along with that, so there's school writing. There's what in journalism is called news writing, or sports writing, or entertainment writing. And each of those different, did you see how those are like the different sections of newspapers, right? So each section has a little different style. So news writing is a very particular way, and there's a formula to it, and there's a way that it's done so that you get all the information you need. And it's a lot like writing an essay, but with very strict rules. And then sports writing, there's also a formula, but it's a little more creative, a little more fun, and the rules are a little bit different. Because you can say, oh, in this cricket game, I know nothing about cricket, but like this cricket game, they scored this many, do you score points in cricket? Yes? Yes, so you score points, and then this team won and this team lost, and this is what the coaches said. But then for entertainment writing, which is like reviewing books or movies or talking about like food and restaurants, you can be like, oh, well, it can be very creative in the way that you write. So you can be like, oh, well, this movie's fantastic, and this is why. It can be kind of more fun and like snazzy is what my mom would call it. So, but what I do is I do news writing. And what's interesting about news writing is, do you guys know what a triangle is? The shape, 3 sides, triangle. So you know how a triangle starts out at the top and it's very thin, and it gets out and it goes fat, right, at the bottom? In news writing, they have what they call the inverted triangle. So you take that triangle and you flip it upside down. So you have the big part at the top, and then it sections down. Now, this is where you get your formula for writing an article for a newspaper. And it's a good way to think of writing. It can be applied to essay writing as well. The inverted triangle basically means that you want your really, really, really important information at the very top of the article. You want to catch people's eyes. You want them to get the information they need right away, right? And then as you go down in the article, you can kind of funnel and make it less important, maybe an extra quote from another person, or just a little bit of added information that isn't essential to the article. Does that make sense? So that first top, so like if you draw it here in your notebooks, you can draw a triangle that's upside down, right? It's easier to visualize that way. So draw it, your upside down triangle, right? So at this very, very top, that is what is called your lead. Have you guys ever heard of a lead before? No? Okay. Your lead is the first sentence in any news article. Now, it can also be the first sentence in any article at all, but news leads are a little bit different than sports leads or entertainment leads or editorial leads, right? Because like we said, they can be a little more creative, they don't follow the same formula. In a news lead, you have 2 ways you can write it, right? Because you're at the top of the triangle. The first way is called a hard news lead. What do you think when you hear the words hard? So it's like, hard means like difficult, or it's very much like when you feel something, it's hard, right? It's like not soft, right? Makes sense? Hard news is news like politics, if a crime is committed and something bad happens, if the economy plummets overnight, that's hard news. Soft news is a baby elephant was born at the zoo. This person got married, this famous person got married. Because soft, what do you think of? Like fluffy, and it feels good to the touch. Soft news makes you happy. It's kind of fun. It's a little extra to kind of balance out the toughness and the hardness of hard news. So with hard news leads, You need who, what, when, where, and why in every lead. So you could say something like, so the who. Mr. Jones, what, stole 18 computers, when, last night, where, from Bob Bettini, why, because he needed them. That's a really bad lead, but see how you had everything and it was a full sentence. So a lot of times leads are like, last night at approximately 6 p.m., 15 hostages were held for an unknown reason in the bus park at Coda Shore. So see, you know exactly what happened. So if you stop reading the article after that sentence, you at least know what happened. Now, the next sentence can be like, police arrived on the scene 15 minutes after the incident occurred, shots had been fired. You can add details as you go on. And then later in the article, you might even be like, witnesses saw a masked man leave. One woman said he looked very tall and I was scared for my life, so I ran in the opposite direction. Now, is that lady's quote important? No? Yes? Is it important? No? Right. So would you start your article with her quote? Why wouldn't you start it because you don't know why she ran in fear. You don't know who this masked man was. Now, you might not never reveal the identity of the bad guy in your hard news lead, but at least you know there was bad guy. Does that make sense? So the whole point of a news article is to make sure in the first sentence that you can give everyone all the information they need, and that's what a lead does. And so with news writing, then you continue with the rest of the story, and then you keep the information like that woman's quote, or maybe a statement from someone at the very end, because you don't need it as much. It's just added, and it makes the story more interesting for the readers to read. But not everyone has enough time to read all of an article, so they're only going to read that first paragraph, maybe.
So what are the differences for writing for newspaper and online blogs?
Okay, writing for a newspaper, depending on what section you're writing for, there's different sections of the newspaper, but if you're writing news, it's all factual. It's all covering exactly what happened to the best of your ability in whatever event you're covering. Writing for sports is very similar. It's covering what happened in the game. Writing for entertainment is more of a review, and it can be opinion-based or talking about food, or maybe a celebrity got married, so you're going to mention that. And then editorials are the opinion page, is where people will write about what they believe on a topic. So, a lot of times in the here, like when I read the English newspapers, they're talking about the Constituent Assembly, they might talk about the Constitution process, maybe load sharing, and they're taught like green energy and different ways Nepal could make tourism better. So that's their opinion on the topic. And they're gonna have facts in there, but it's what they believe. Writing for a blog, it depends on the topic. The blog, a lot of times people view blogs as online journals, and it's just their thoughts, their opinions, their musings about the world. Or maybe they have a food blog, and it might be very similar to food writing in a newspaper, but it's online, and it might just be what they do for fun. So there are news blogs, but a lot of times they're news with a particular slant, be it political, be it maybe someone's just ideology that they subscribe to, just like what they believe in. So blogs are very much based in opinion, and the writing is very casual. Now, not all blogs are casual. Some of them are very professional. The writing is newsworthy. It could easily be picked up and run in a newspaper. But a lot of times it's mostly more, it's kind of like the online journal idea. You just write what you think. It's more funny. It might be creative. You can write about whatever you want. Like I actually have a blog for Nepal, and the stuff that I write there is very different from the stuff that I write in the newspaper. The news is it's a lot of times more serious and has a very serious tone, where my blog, it's almost like I'm speaking, and this is what I would say to my friends when I'm telling a story about the time I almost fell out of the bus when we made a turn because I was standing in like the little well. So it's definitely a difference of style of writing. It's just different in that way. Did I answer your question?
Does the conclusion need to be written in news also?
Yes, it's a little bit different though. So you know how when you're writing an essay and you have a very distinct conclusion, a lot of times you can start it in conclusion. With news stories, you really don't write a very formal conclusion. It's more that you've reached the end of your story and you've reached a stopping point. So you will conclude and you'll wrap everything up, but it's like that inverted triangle. You've reached the end of the important information and you don't have anything else to say. But a lot of news writers have, some people really like to end on a quote because it's a good way to finalize everything. Some people like to end on not their opinion, but maybe like a final sentence is a better way to think of it than a conclusion. When I write news stories, I end on a quote a lot just because I think it gives it a good ending. And sometimes I can't think of a better way to end it than somebody else's quote. Because in interviews, a lot of times you'll have a really good final quote from the person you interviewed about whatever subject you're writing on or maybe the event that's going on. So they kind of end it for you. And it has a very final tone to it. So it is a conclusion, but not in like the paragraph form that you would in an essay.
What are the basic things that need to be mentioned to make an essay effective?
To make it effective?
Yes.
It's pretty simple. It can be 5 paragraphs. That's a basic essay, an introduction, 3 body paragraphs that tell you about what your was in your introduction, and then a conclusion, right? Is that how you guys write essays? Yeah? You've all done it a million times. When you think about writing an essay, remember that inverted triangle, right? So you have your hard news lead, and then you have your information. You want to capture your reader's attention. So should you start your essay with something that doesn't make any sense, or should you start your essay with kind of like a hard news lead, where you give them information, or you give them something that catches their attention, and then you can go into more details and explain yourself? See? So news writing and essay writing is very different, but you can apply what you know about news writing to essay writing and vice versa, right? So when you're writing an essay, if you're doing your introduction, there's some components you have to have, correct? You can't just be like, this is my essay and this is what I'm going to talk about, right? That's not a very good essay. I mean, I guess you can do that, but it's not the best written that you can do. So one of the things that you absolutely need in every essay, regardless of length, even if it's a paragraph, is you have to have a thesis statement. Do you guys know what a thesis statement is? No? No? Okay. A thesis statement, this is important, so pencils ready? A thesis statement is where you tell your reader or your audience what your paper is about. Well, you definitely need your thesis statement, and you need to make sure that you are supporting your arguments. And what that means is that so your argument is a lot of times what's in your thesis statement. That's what you think is that's your opinion on the subject. So to make an essay effective, regardless of the style, you need to back up what you say in your thesis statement. So you need supporting evidence, and what that means is you need to be able, instead of just your opinion, maybe find outside sources. That's where your attribution comes into play. Or maybe back your opinion up with other facts, back your opinion up with why. Maybe it's just an opinion essay and you're not really using a lot of facts. You should be able to explain why you believe that. So as long as you find supporting evidence in those body paragraphs, you'll have an effective essay. And as long as you have it well organized, you'll be fine. So make sure you have your thesis, make sure you have very strong introduction sentences, make sure you have that supporting evidence within the body paragraphs and a good conclusion, and you will have an extremely effective essay, no matter what you're talking about.
Can you repeat again about thesis statement?
Yes. A thesis statement, like we talked about, is in your introduction paragraph, and it's usually the last sentence or the last 2 sentences. And what it does is it gives the reader or your audience, the person that's reading your paper, it gives them the information about what your paper is going to be about. So in some cases, you can list it out as if you're only having 3 body paragraphs, you can list it out being this is a good way to think about it. My paper is about X, Y, and Z. Now, a bad thesis statement is saying my paper is going to be about, right? But instead, you can state your opinion and why in 3 ways. Or you can just state your opinions, something like chocolate peanut butter sandwiches are the best sandwich in the world. If that's what your paper's about, that's what you can write about, correct? So you just state your opinion, and you don't have to say I think or I believe or my paper is about. But it's kind of a good way to think about it. Just think, what is my paper about? And you can start your sentence in your head when you're figuring it out. My paper is about this. So all it is your first opinion and telling your reader and your audience what you're going to write about in one sentence.
We will continue with our program after a break. Welcome back. You're watching the UTV show.
Editing and proofreading, are they the same thing?
Yes and no. A little bit. So when you're just writing an essay, a lot of times what you're looking for is spelling mistakes, which is proofreading, and it's looking for grammar mistakes. So it is very much the same thing because that's the editing process. Part of that is the editing process is just proofreading and finding spelling mistakes, maybe finding capitalization and punctuation mistakes, those type of very basic things. Editing is on a very much a bigger scale. Editing is maybe changing where a paragraph goes because it makes more sense in the flow of the paper. You might edit a paper and realize that you don't actually like the opinion that you've stated in your thesis statement and write a whole new draft. Well, proofreading was only a part of that. And when you're editing for much larger projects like a thesis, or say you wrote a book, you're going through draft after draft after draft where you're proofreading along the way and checking for spelling and checking for grammar, but you're also developing characters, developing ideas and tweaking those along the way. Maybe you're cutting whole storylines, or you're deciding that, I don't really like the way that this part of my thesis research is going. It doesn't make any sense, so I might not put it into my final paper. So see where proofreading is just a part of the editing process, and it is editing, but editing is the broader, more grand scale of proofreading. Proofreading is just the beginning. Does that make sense? Yeah.
What should be the total word count for an article?
For an article, what should you work on?
Medium word count. Word. How many words should be?
Words? Oh, words.
What should be the medium word count for an article?
For news articles, it all depends on where you're writing it for. For example, the paper I work for, The Observer, we go by inches because that's how we measure things in the States. So every article should be between 12 and 15 inches, and it can be more. It really cannot be less than 12. And 12 inches is roughly 1 page on a Word document. So like when you're writing on the computer. However, when you're writing by hand, it would be so like if I'm writing in this notebook, it might be this page and the back for me because I have very large handwriting. But if you have smaller handwriting, it'd probably be about this size too. So 12 inches is right around 500 words, between 400 and 500 words, just depending on, a lot of times you can see how much it fills up. But some people want much larger articles. Like if you guys see like Republica, like that's the international version of the New York Times. The New York Times articles are crazy long. They're huge. I don't read all of them half the time because it's just too many words. Sometimes it's just too long. But news articles, really a really good way to think about it is those in the New York Times, way too long. Nobody's gonna want something that long. But about a page in a Word document or maybe 2 pages on one of these notebooks would be a good size.
What do you think about rumors?
About rumors?
Do they make better impression for the audience?
So if you write about rumors in your article? No. It makes you look like a bad journalist. If you're gonna write about a rumor, you need to make sure that it's based in fact because some things start as rumors and journalists should pay attention to them, but they shouldn't just publish them right away. For example, in the United States, there was a big scandal at Penn State University regarding a football coach. And the girl that broke the story graduated from this college in 2008. And she had started hearing rumors about what he was convicted of in like 2006 or 2007. She sat on it until January of 2012 because she didn't have it based in fact. Once she had it based in fact, she broke the story. If you just publish rumors as a news writer, people won't take you seriously. If you want to publish rumors, you should write about celebrities and have tabloids so it's like fake, it's not very good news. And in a lot of countries, you'll get sued if you publish rumors about someone. It's called libel. It's spreading false information. So rumors are important to news writers, especially surrounding politics, and maybe they hear something about, oh, well, I think this person's going to vote this way and it's going to throw the whole thing. They should pay attention to them, but don't publish anything until you have proof that it's true.
Next question.
Okay.
What kind of title should we use for the article?
For an article, titles depend on the type of article you're writing. For editorial articles, you can do something fun. Like one of my favorite titles ever for something I've written was I wrote an opinion piece on why I don't like polenta, which is an Italian food that I hate because my family's Italian and my grandmother thinks I love this food. I don't like polenta very much. So I wrote this article about how she came and visited me at school and made polenta and stewed chicken, and she was so excited to see me eat it, but I really don't like it. And I titled it Italian Girl Problems. So like that is not a news art, but I love that title. So it's kind of funny, it's like snappy, you can see it. But if you're titling just a normal news article, it can be not boring, you want to catch their eye, but it's very serious still. It's kind of like writing a lead. So, in news you have like the thick black title, the headline, and then you have a subhead, which is like the smaller headline that's usually in italics and kind of like fancier writing underneath that that gives you more information. So a headline could be something like 15 wounded in shooting. And then underneath you can explain it more. Or it could be something such as university receives massive grant. You always need to have a verb and a subject, and you need to have a subject and a verb in every headline, and sometimes I write them without them too. I'm not a very good headline writer. And you always need to make sure that it's active, not passive. So you can't, received would not work because it happened in the past. It needs to be like it's happening. So university receives grant. Or Jenkins and Obama discuss healthcare. President Jenkins is the president of the University of Notre Dame, and then Barack Obama is the president of the U.S., and they've been talking a lot about the healthcare. There's a big healthcare debate in the U.S. going on right now. So if you cover that, you could be like Jenkins and Obama discuss healthcare. So headlines should give the audience just very quick information about what's going to be in your article. So if all they see is the front page especially, they'll know what happened in the world that day.
You said something about who, when, what. Can you repeat that again?
Yes. I was talking about news leads. And what you need in every news leads is who, what, when, where, and why. Did you get them all? Yeah? Good.
You can call the TYA office at 4257-250 or send us an email at utya@gmail.com. We will be back next week with another episode of UTV Show. Have a nice week. Namaste.